Good afternoon, participants. Behalf of IRIFM, I welcome to all of you for this Railway Accounts and Finance webinar series for targeting this Appendix 3 special examination. Today's topic is stores accounts, short notes from the examination point of view. To take up this session, we have faculty Shri P.V. Raghava Rao, retired senior FA and presently working as a consultant faculty in IRIFM. Sir, welcome to sir. Sir, welcome to this session. Over to you for another 1.5 hours, sir. Please carry.
Thank you, Nageswaraji.
Thank you. Right now, I'm muted all the participants.
Okay.
Can I unmute at the end of the session?
Yes.
For addressing any queries? Yeah.
Yes.
Please, thank you, sir.
Friends, we have good afternoon, all of you. All of you, please kindly listen to these topics of stores accounts. I have made based on the previous year's examinations, and I made it in a summarized way where you have combination of 5 marks questions, 10 marks questions, and an essay question together. So like that, I have made the topics of these stores topics. These are all examination topics. This may be a short notes में आ सकता आने का chance है. Short notes, short answer questions, 5 marks questions में, और part essay में 10 और 8 mark का combination में होता है ऐसा चीज़. So इसमें first I will take these short stores accounts examination topics in 2 parts. ये week में एक पार्ट और आगे वीक में और एक पार्ट में ले लूंगा. पूरा टॉपिक्स है इसमें मैं I will deal with the scrutiny of stock index and then contract conditions. Contract conditions हमारा examinations में like liquid damages, inspection clauses, denial clauses, option clause, ऐसा we have examination topics. I will be dealing those things in the stores contract conditions. ये पूरा मिला के एक ऐसे भी बना सकते हैं. और प्रोक्यूरमेंट थ्रू स्पॉट परचेज और एक नया आइटम है स्पॉट परचेज का. हमारा अकाउंट्स ऑफिसर्स का जवाबदारी में ये स्पॉट परचेज चलेगा. प्रोक्यूरमेंट थ्रू जेम, एक्चुअली दैट इज अ जनरल टॉपिक. आई विल टच वेरी लाइटली इन दिस बिकॉज मेनी थिंग्स. एंड स्टोर्स टेंडरिंग सिस्टम, जनरल ब्रीफ अबाउट द स्टोर्स टेंडर्स. दीज आर द टॉपिक्स फॉर टुडेज डिस्कशन. Friends, we will begin with scrutiny of stock indents. What are these stock indents? How these stock items are there in general. This is for the examination point of view only. Please remember, we are looking from the examination point of view. Normally, the planning of stock items and system of recruitment is dealt by the responsibility of stocking the items, keeping them in the depots and issuing them. That means procurement, planning, procurement, issue of these stock items is the responsibility of the principal chief material manager, that is stores department of a zonal railway or a production unit. Normally, when we take the items, when we purchase these items in bulk, we get it cheaper. And also the issue have the purpose of stocking the items in stores depots is to issue the items, components continuously, that is in continuity, we will be issuing these items because there will be a demand for these items continuously. First, stores department has also to first decide what items they will stock for meeting the demands of the various user departments. Normally, if you see the user departments, will be having engineering department, mechanical department, S&D department, electrical department, and general departments. Engineering department stores maintenance normally less with them only, but however the rules and regulations are broadly based on the material management department only. However, for items required for maintenance activities, repairs and maintenance of plant and equipment, repairs and maintenance of carriage and wagons, repairs and maintenance of motive power, this is rolling stock, locos, carriages and wagons, there will be continuous demand for usage of components on these rolling stock items. So we have to have the advanced forecasting and of these items for the for the quantum of procurement, that is based on the previous consumption pattern, we will have to decide whether the items, certain items, whether to stock these items or purchase as and when required, economies of stocking and economies of not stocking. This has to be decided by the respective material management departments of general railways. So normally, what is the basis for stocking the item and non-stocking the item is the consumption pattern only. The item is not required continuously, then we need not stock that item. For example, there is a paint required for the some kind of a paint, special paint for the coaches of a palace and wheels. The paint is only for that use of that. It is some kind of a different golden color paint. So palace and wheels paint is only required only once in a year. So for that, we need not stock that item of paint. Only it should be through a non-stock item. That is the general idea about the stock items. However, there are certain spares also which are not required regularly and only to be purchased based on the requirement may be lesser, but however, it is serious to not to have that item for immediate issue. So it has serious repercussions. The activity may stop. For such items also, though there may be lesser demand for those items, still we need to stock होना पड़ेगा. So इसका importance इतना है. In other words, if you don't issue that item, that is stock out, you are delaying the activity for want of this particular spare for procurement. Such stock, that is known as stock out cost. That is stock out cost. So such items are also have to be stocked. So this has to be decided by the material management departments. Once the item is stocked, and it is the responsibility of the material management department, that is stores department of a general railway, the item is made available at every point of time whenever it is required for the issue. As in many situations, that the stocks are always available so that the item can be issued whenever demanded by the user. So we have to have various methods of recoupment, and for us also we have various recoupment models are available. We'll be purchasing, and normally as an internal part of internal check of these items, how to check the quantities of items, how these stock indents are to be checked, how the non-stock indents have to be checked. So both the stock indents and non-stock indents are supposed to be, are required to be verified in the internal check of the internal check by the accounts department. When there are certain guidelines are given, these guidelines are based on the I am also sharing certain points here. Sometimes these financial rules may go upward, but however, the basic principle is all indents on central purchase agencies, that is stock items and contracts for stores or works valued for 4 lakhs for items other than safety and 8 lakhs for safety items should be furnished to the Chief Accounts Officer for prior scrutiny and weighting. So that means that is the value. Nowadays the values have been enhanced. Please check the MSOP. But however, that means there is a monetary value for the internal check. That means that up to that value, the indents can be placed by the respective depot officers of the material management. So the quantity indented is not in excess of the quantity vetted previously in the contract estimate. First and foremost, when we scrutinize these stock indents, the first item to be checked, what is the quantity earlier it has been vetted, and then the correct head of purchase so has been indicated and the expenditure has been shown as chargeable to current year. So what is the head of item, that is against that group of item, mechanical item, S&D item, against that particular head of account where it is for which the grant is available, and accordingly the indent is being placed is also point of scrutiny. Then the indent has been signed by an officer competent to do so, and the scrutiny of contracts for acceptance of tender should be conducted with reference to the purchase policy and rules and the Indian Railway IRS conditions, we call it the Indian Railway Standard Conditions of Contract and general instructions issued by board and general railways are to be followed from time to time for the placing the indent as well as the verification of the items available in indents in the internal check. Generally, while doing so, what is the scrutiny points? Again, we will sum up as per the purchase should be adequate enough and unnecessary purchases should not be made. The purchase should be adequate enough. It should be adequate. It should not be more or it should not be less. Normally, the guiding factor for deciding the quantity of material is materials and space to be decided upon the loco, carriage, wagon holding of a depot. That is the holding of that particular asset of a depot, shed, workshop, quantity per each loco, carriage, wagon that is going to be scheduled for this activity. It may be a POH activity, IOH activity, or maybe we call it a standard schedule activity, anything for that. And periodicity of the change of items. The periodicity of the change of the items is one of the guiding factor for deciding the quantity of item in a indent. And also frequency of change of items. Normally, some items are changed every 15 days. Some items are changed every 45 days. Some items are changed after 6 months. Some items are changed during the POH only. That is maybe some 2.5 years, maybe 18 months, according to that rolling stock type. So frequency of change of items during the IOH or POH schedule, for which material component is decided for AAC procurement, is decided for AAC for procurement. Then shelf life of the item and percentage of rejection is an important factor. That means paints have some shelf life. Some oils have some shelf life, some kind of engine oils. Or some items which can be which has some kind of corrosion in the nature also have IOH means intermittent overhauling. This is done during the course of running of the trains. Intermittent overhauling. POH means periodical overhauling. IOH means intermittent overhauling. So iska mutabik, these are all planned activities at the workshops or at the depots or at the sheds as the case may be. So these are all the guiding factors and they decide upon the quantity of item in an indent. This is applicable even for the non-stock items also. So consumption pattern, how in the case of stock items, consumption consumption pattern based on the income condition of the rolling stock indent and authority of the deciding which item is safety item and having the reliability of the source of supply. We'll be seeing those things. And then a must change item for the some kind of touch and feel items. These are all the factors that guide the fixing the quantities on an indent. And then similarly, there are some released items which can be used again. These released items on their one-to-one account is also important factor for the purpose of deciding the quantity. So as such, all the stock indents have to be verified in the accounts department before they are placed for the further procurement action. Then indent is also seen that indent has been signed by the competent authority. These are the items related to the indent. But in the more specific stores indents deciding the average annual consumption, we call it as average annual consumption. Otherwise, हम कुछ रेलवे में बोलता है EAC, estimated annual consumption. ये भी हो सकता है estimated annual consumption or average annual consumption. This is fixed based on the previous 3 years, immediate precedent previous 3 years average annual consumption. So it is to be seen by the management. Here the management means 3 departments. 3 departments milaki. That is now all the when we say AAC fixation to the stock items, it is indents. It is related to the indents. A category items, B category items, and C category items and the level of check by them, and the level of vetting, and level of approval, and differ. Normally differ. I will also give you some few guidelines about that. So that means, see, when we are fixing the average annual consumption, normally what we take stock on hand, and also through for each item, and also what is the ideal procurement. The ideal procurement based on the consumption and the staggered issues of the quantities from depots to the respective user department. So for this purpose, the fixing the AAC is an utmost and vital important thing in the stores indents. Normally, all the stock items will have a unique identification number known as PL number. So this will enable us to see that items are properly procured by the respective officers for the respective group of items, in which entire amount is accounted through the purchase grant. Normally, we have certain guidelines given, scrutiny of indents, approvals, and vetting. मैं आपको बताऊंगा as for item part D, item 1C, if you see, vetting of indents by associate finance to be placed on centralized procurement agencies by principal chief material manager for the categories of safety, passenger necessity items, and other than safety and passenger necessity items. That means safety and passenger necessity and other than those items. That is other than safety and other than passenger necessity items. What is the items given? I am giving. So you can write when you write exam. The limit for vetting of indent is above 15 lakhs for safety and passenger necessity items, and 8 lakhs for other than safety and passenger necessity items. So up to 15 lakhs for safety and passenger necessity items, there is no vetting. So beyond that, vetting is necessary. So the powers of finance department are just see to vet these items. Who can vet which kind of items? PHOD and above, they can vet. They are supposed to vet items for more than 20 crores. SAG and above 3 crores and up to 20 crores. SAG and officer FNCO can vet the items up to 20 crores. JAG, that means deputy JAG level and selection grade administrative grade officers can vet up to 3 crores. Senior scale officers above 15 lakhs and up to 1.5 crores in the case of safety and passenger necessity, and 8 lakhs up to this scale is given for senior scale up for the vetting of indents. So this is the importance of the verification of items and the level of vetting, because to give the proper attention for the procurement of items by the for the stocking purposes in the stores departments. So as for item, if you see item 1.1B of MSOP Part D, PCM has full powers for approval of AAC of ABC category items. Whereas I will be showing that MSOP these things. Then normally single in this present situations, the stock items are being consumed by both the divisions as well as the workshops. As such, sometimes the requirement can be clubbed, and it is only single stage vetting for the speedy procurement of items. It is only a single stage of vetting. But however, there is again a scrutiny is there, a little scrutiny. However, in case of enhancement of consumption of quantities in the B category items, there is no scrutiny, there is no vetting. Here I will show you the MSOP thing. Just look at this. Approval of quantities for procurement 1.1B, approval of AAC of A, B, C category items. PCM has full powers for this thing, approval for the quantities. But however, vetting of A category items and B category, A category items is only there at only single stage. Whereas for B and C categories, no finance vetting is required. No finance vetting is required for the B and C category items. Why? This is only for the purpose of speedy procurement of items and not to delay at the planning stage itself. At the planning stage itself. So this is the level of vetting. But however, there is again small this thing is there. Whenever if you find in the case of B category items where the consumption is happening in such a way, it's erratic, and finance can intervene and alert the executive departments and as well as the stores department with regard to the fixing the ASCs in the case of B category items in a proactive manner. This is only for the purpose of having a double check on the weighting of quantities. So for that purpose, so what is the guiding factor for the purpose of weighting the A, B, C categories? Finally, against that group of items, the budget allotment required, the budget allotment available for that particular for the group of those items in the form of purchase grant. We call it as purchase grant, GP budget, the general purpose budget purchase grant, and there is advance grant also. Advancement grant means for the next subsequent years, the railway board decides based on the availability of the cash position, they will fix from time to time. But however, the stores budget, the general purpose budget, that is purchase grant, we normally call is a derived figure based on the planning action made available by the respective revenue budget and as well as the capital budget requirements. So normally, what are the items that go into the purchases? Under the funds, we call it the purchase grant. Stores for capital works, stores for works chargeable to DRF, DF, LW, and stores required for general purpose. So stores required for general purpose. Normally, whenever we procure items for stores for capital works, store for the other plan heads, normally we debit directly to the plan head. We don't operate any stores in stock account. So there is no, it will not pass through the stores to suspense account. So normally the lump sum allotment will be distributed by the, there is a question I will be taking A, B, C category items. I will explain you A category items, B category items in the next class. There is again a ABC classification of it. Please listen. I will explain you A category items, B category items, C category items based on the value of those items, value of the consumption, the required level of approvals as well as the control for the purpose. Anyway, I will explain you in the next class. Now let us look at let us understand the stock items are classified into A, B, C categorization of items, and the categorization of A, B, C is for the purpose of control over expenditure mechanism for both for the procurement as well as issue of the materials. So to that extent, so the lump sum allotment will be, that is general purpose allotment will be distributed GM. GM means GM budget, that is between the several heads of stores. This distribution should be intimated to stores accounts officer, where it should be seen at the time of entering the commitments, at the time of commitment, so that the expenditure likely to be incurred does not exceed the cash allotment as distributed over the various heads. That means against the general purpose budget grant, against the purchase grant, against each group of items, mechanical items, electrical items, loco components, carriage components, wagon items. I will show you various items in the coming slides. Against that, each group of item is provided with a fund. Against that fund only, normally intents have to be placed, duly taking into the account the throw forward. So throw forward items of the previous year and also items that are going to be throw forward for the next year. Taking these things into account, we will be having the overall control over the vetting of stock items, that is procurement made through the bulk purchases by the material management department, that is PCM. That is importance of the budget allotments. Normally, when we say the estimating the value of stores to be purchased for the year, normally what are the most important factors we take into consideration? Estimated throw forward from the previous year, value of stores indents for which were certified against previous year's grants, but which have not been paid before the close of the previous year. That is to be taken into consideration. Indents for the current year minus estimated throw forward to the next year. So to that extent, we will be regulating the indenting of the stock items, to see that the items that are procured are likely to be used this year and there won't be any excess procurement, and there exists a proper budgetary control over the stock items. For this purpose, we do have a tool known as funds register. A funds register is the most important thing. So this will come for an examination. Now, a manuscript register is maintained in the accounts department, stores accounts department, to watch the incurrence of liabilities against the budget grant distributed. Now, this funds register is now mechanized under IMMS. Now, funds register is mechanized. So now this is being developed in IMMS. It has been developed also. Now enabling the management to finalize Indians without. So मैं बताया ना आपको funds register में कैसा register में कैसा fund control होता है. This is under form S506. इसमें these are the groups of items, class of stores items. Budget grant, date of incurring liabilities, reference to contracts, etc. Steam loco parts, diesel loco parts, electric loco parts, carriage and wagon, electrical stores, S&T stores, PVA materials, engineering stores, then abrasives tools, brushes, brushware, India rubber, electrodes, welding accessories, paints, enamels, crockery, cutlery, cloth cutting. Like that, we have so many groups of items. So many, we will be having the control over the indents based on the. कृपया करके हिंदी में भी बताइए सर. मैं कोशिश कर रहा हूं, बट लेकिन यहाँ से और एक सूचना मिलता है मेरे को, अंग्रेजी में भी बात करो. सो मैं जुली मेरी करके मैं कर रहा हूँ. ये मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट में मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट फंड्स रजिस्टर इंग्लिश अभी IMMS में हो रहा है, इंटीग्रेटेड मटेरियल मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम में. इससे मुताबिक allotment made, budget allotment distributed against each group of items, the funds register is posted, and accordingly the liabilities that are going to be incurred for that year a funds register में record होता है. It is maintained in stores accounts officer, stores accounts office, and it is the responsibility of the stores accounts officer for watching the liabilities against the budget allotment made in the funds register against the indents that are to be placed for the procurement action against the stock items. That is the details about the. That is the details about the little about the stock items, importance of weighting of stock items, and who does what and what are the powers. I'll just again. Here, what is the tool means funds register, and budget allotment is for the purpose, and the approval of AAC of AB items is within the powers of material management department. Approval is within the material management department. Waiting for the A category items only is available. B and C category of items waiting is not required. And in the case of enhancement of quantities in the B category items, there will be a check again whenever the consumption pattern is happening more than the previous year's consumption without matching the anticipated level of activity. उनका भी check होना चाहिए. That is the importance of weighting of items by the associate accounts office. Now ये सब कुछ हो रहा है online में. IMMS, they will process the online indents, and in the online these indents are weighted with the in the stores accounts office, online weighted by the stores accounts officer. So for this, that is the about the importance of the thing. Down second chapter, second point, I will be stores contract conditions, and now we are discussing about the stores contract conditions and evaluation of tenders. So this is another topic. इसमें थोड़ा small topics होगा. What are the guiding principles for procurement? The right quality, right quantity. The guiding principles for procurement for any organization, including Indian Railways, is that right quality of material, right quantity of material, right price, right time, right place, required place. So our consignee is somewhere else, you cannot procure, keep it somewhere else. So we have to have the items procured at right place also. These are known as 5 R's. These are known as 5 R's. So normally a professional purchaser, a good professional purchaser has to purchase materials just adequate quantity. That is known as right quality. Right quality. Unless if the quality fails, then entire activity comes to standstill. Then right quantities, either too much right quantity boleto, neither too much nor too little. And right price means competitive, but not unworkable. Unworkable hona chahiye. It should be right price. So right delivery, that means with right mode of transportation as desired at a desired place. हमारा activity कहाँ होता है? Online में कोई सभी जगहों में होता है, but लेकिन centralized procurement headquarters में होता है. So we have to have these materials directly procured and stocked at that depot where the activity is there at a desired place on required time from right sources. That means हमारा sources भी approved source होना चाहिए. There should be reliable sources. That means having potential and technical knowledge, know-how, facilities and financial capability to provide supply the items. ये सब होना चाहिए. Capability and record of good performance these are all the important items which 5 R's required for the procurement of items. In railway purchases, spending of public money is there because we are incurring the money. So what is most important thing is while doing so, while procuring the items, every purchaser is expected to follow the canons of the financial propriety. So most important guiding factor for all the officials, user department, material department, and as well as finance department, they have to follow the canons of financial propriety, as you are all aware. And it is seen that the purchase policy that is there in the system should be in consonance with the government principles, government acts, that is Contract Act, laws of the land. So GST, Limitation Act, arbitration, that pura laws of the lands are applicable whenever we make purchases. So that is most important thing. So easily, in addition, the Indian Railways purchase policy has also to be in line with the overall purchase policy of the government of India. It should be in accordance with the overall purchase policy of the government of India. As such, we have to frame our contract conditions. We are having IRS conditions, normally we call them. These conditions should be in consonance with the laws of the land. So for this purpose, normally what we will do, the process of procurement, normally we call tenders. What is a tender? Calling an offer. The tender is nothing but calling an offer, calling of tenders, and then what kind of consideration of tenders and conditions available in the contract and handling the contract. These are the important process of the procurement. Our procurement process may, what are the important items? Calling the offers, taking the offers, and also how to consider those offers, how to evaluate these offers, consideration of tenders, and conditions of the contract. What are the conditions of the contract, wherein which both the purchaser and seller are placed in the same level length, both are the equal parties in a contract. So for that purpose, we have this procurement policy, which should be based on the overall purchase policy of the government of India, and laws of the land have to be necessarily followed. Normally, when we call there, we have methods of tenders, we have types of tenders, open tender and bulletin tenders. And in the case, we have limited tender also. For limited tender, for ordinary items. Normally, limited tenders means items with approved sources. Normally, IRS conditions up to certain level, they are items with approved sources. That means we can call them items of procurement with approved sources. Normally, it is part of limited tender only. And there are certain safety and passenger necessity items. We go from the approved source only for these items. Normally, these are called limited tenders. There are again single tenders. There may be some items non-PAC, proprietary article certificate, PAC boleto, non-proprietary article certificate. There may be some clear proprietary article certificate, and there may be some items with a qualified proprietary article certificate, and special provisions for single and limited tenders in emergencies. These are all the various aspects of public procurement by Indian Railways, which is in consonance with the government policy of the India. That is the process of procurement in our system. So मैं क्या करूँगा थोड़ा आपको मैं stores contract conditions में some important clauses we will be seeing, and this splitting of quantities, procurement from approved sources, liquidated damages, quantity option clause, inspection clause. These are all the items of examinations, points of items of examination. So I will discuss, but anyway we'll further deal with. First, what are the rules leading to inviting these tenders? Proprietary article certificate. I will explain you in the next class what is a proprietary article certificate. That means when we certify certain items that we procure that item from that particular item. So to keep a firm under an issue a proprietary article certificate, the certain sanctions are required. I'll discuss you in the next class, in the general class. Okay. Rules relating to inviting stores tenders. So we will just see, that means while inviting we have to follow certain guidelines. That means minimum notice period, we call it as notice period for inviting that and tender. Open for open tender means for open tenders, so notice period should not be less than 21 days. The notice period should not be less than 21 days. But in the case of single tenders or bulletin tenders and limited tenders, generally guidelines are given. But however, the procurement should be in such a way that should be reasonably good. It should be reasonably good, and there must be some kind of transparency to take everybody into consideration, to invite everybody. So in these cases also, limited, bulletin and single tenders, no specific guidelines are available, because notice period ke bare mein, it is suggested a minimum 10 days from the date of publication to get a good considered offer. We see that there must be some kind of a considered offer to accept and to take a considered offer. There must be a minimum of 10 days. That is general guidelines we were given, but there is no hard and fast. It can be further reduced on case-to-case basis with the approval of principal chief material manager, depending upon the urgency. So notice period ki bare mein, only open tender, it is not less than 21 days. That is the important stricture to be followed. But in the case of limited and bulletin tenders and single tenders, it is the principal chief material manager who decides upon such kind of notice period. But however, it is suggested a minimum of 10 days to take it as a considered offer. That is an acceptable principle. Normally, minimum notice period in the case for quotations, normally up to 10 lakhs we see in our working. Normally we take at least 7 days. In the case of open tenders, where large tenders about 2 crores and all, not minimum notice period, not less than 1 month. So it will be 1 month, 30 days notice period must be there. And these are the following things. These are the we follow. Tenders up to 2 crores, that is through e-tendering model. 21 days with the approval of PHOD or DRM. With the finance concurrent approval, that notice period can be reduced to 14 days. These are the simple guidelines. For our examination purpose, this is enough for us. So our ek baar dekhna ji, minimum notice period for inviting, the notice period for inviting tenders, so standards is a vital cheese, itna important hai. Isme open tender should not be less than 21 days, but however, in the case of large tenders having more than 2 crores, so notice period should not be less than 1 month. So like that, we have these guiding principles for the purpose of notice related to the inviting the stores tenders. Normally, when we consideration of tenders में क्या चीज होता है बोले तो देखना है some important considerations, consideration of tenders through IRS model, IRS conditions, procurement from approved sources, splitting of quantities, that is including pre-decided splitting criteria. Normally, IR follow in the condition itself, we will keep हमारा condition रखता है pre-decided splitting criteria, and then price variation clause, and then M&P purchase cost, including comprehensive annual maintenance charges and deviation to IRS conditions, and then purchase preference, MSMEs, MSCs, policies under Make in India policy. These are the important things. And there's another cheese like negotiation and counter offer. These are the important parameters for consideration of tenders by the administration while making the purchases. So I will discuss important items only. What is meant by procurement from approved sources in source standards? Procurement from approved sources means we are going for a quality supplier. We are going for a quality supplier. इसके लिए क्या होना? The essence of purchasing comprehensive annual maintenance charges. CAMC बोले तो comprehensive annual maintenance charges. MSE बोले तो MSME, MSE, micro small enterprises. Otherwise, micro, small and medium enterprises. Micro, small and medium enterprises. MSE, MSME. These are the various kind of enterprises based on Indian government policy of having startups and recognizing them small scale under small scale units where public procurement has to support these units for indigenous development of manufacturing entrepreneurs. Okay, that is known as MSC. CAM is the comprehensive annual maintenance contract. That is a service contract. Okay, that is important. The essence of purchasing is rational source selection. That is, source selection is most important thing, that we have to choose a quality supplier. So that means we will have a list of approved sources by Indian Railways undergoing. That means every time the list of approved sources will be dealt by the various authorities like approved sources. Normally we take them. Status of firm is recorded as on the date of tender opening. So that particular firm is in the approved source or not is deciding date is on the date of tender opening. Is on the date of tender. Who approves these sources? We will be approving source approving authorities are RDSO, or CLW, ICF, DMW, BLW. These are all our production units. Core, RDSO, these are the agencies where the sources are approved based on the standard specifications issued and made available by them by way of a method that they verify. They go to the firm and see their capability in terms of technical capability as well as the financial capability and their ability to deliver and ability to sustain in the business. Like there are so many things they do, and they give them approved sources. So part 1 and part 2 approved sources will be decided by them. So normally part 1 source or part 2 source are decided by these agencies. So bulk purchase, normally Indian Railways procurement policy, as per the Indian Railways procurement policy, bulk purchase, when we offer quantity for procurement among the contractors available in the approved sources. So part 1 vendors will be taking. So the bulk purchase of items are made by General Railways or production units are from the part 1 vendors, part 1 sources of the approved list. But however, for the development of the resourcefulness, so ordering on firms approved by part 2 list, there are some part 2 lists up to 15% of the quantity. 15% of the quantity are available in the tender. We can offer to the part 2 vendors for them to develop in future, and they become over the time they get the expertise, and we will have source available for purchase. Ordering on part 2 approved sources can be beyond 15% or highest quantity of a past record. So there are certain guidelines that are given. So sometimes even this 15% can be given up to 25% of the net procurable quantity in certain cases wherever the past performance of the part 2 vendor is acceptable. So in such cases, what is the guiding principle is that the maximum of 25% of the net procurable quantity in the given procurement case based on the previous quantum of supply, and the tender committee acceptance authority being satisfied about the financial capacity and performance aspect. It means even from the part 2, you can go up to 25% of the net procurable quantity of that procurement. Up to 25% can be given based on the past performance and the deliberation made by the tender committee. So generally, when more than one part to source are within the zone of consideration on the basis of competitive price making, even we can split the quantity among the part 2 approved sources. Normally, when we can split the quantities and give it to the part 1 approved sources, and we can have the splitting of quantities. That means in a works contract, if you see, the L1 will be the entire work will be taken. But in the stores contract, here not only L1, within the zone of consideration, if the L2 is also satisfying, then we will split the quantity and give it to the both the at the L1 rate only for both the part 1 approved list vendors, for enabling us to give the business and as well to ensure that we get the supply at required places. So this is known as procurement from the approved sources. So what is the advantage here? In the stores contenders, part 1 suppliers we can split the quantity among the part 1 vendors and give the quantity and make the purchaser place the purchasers on both the sources of the supply. The 1 or 2 also we can split. So based on our requirement and based on the logistics, so many things. So the purchaser, here the purchaser means tender committee will decide. Tender committee means a 3-member committee will be sitting, a finance member and a user department member, and also stores department member will be the convener in the stores tender committee. So that is how the procurement from the approved sources will happen, where approved sources are part 1 vendors and part 2 vendors, and for part 1 vendors bulk quantity is placed on the part 1 vendors of the approved sources, and 15% of the quantity normally offered to the part 2 vendors based in the zone of consideration. So that is the important of procurement of items from approved sources, as well as ensuring that there is a developing the sources for the supply of items to the Indian Railway requirements. That is one important thing. So another item is known as splitting of quantities. हिंदी वालों के लिए ने ले तो ये क्लास है नहीं है, ये हिंदी आप थोड़ा ये समझो जी, हिंदी में भी बात करूंगा मैं। ये स्प्लिटिंग ऑफ क्वांटिटीज में नॉर्मली स्प्लिटिंग ये टेक्निकल बात है जी, हिंदी में मेरे को थोड़ा आई विल गिव दी डिटेल्स आल्सो नोट्स मेरे तो आप थोड़ा स्लो जाऊंगा, आप कोशिश कर लो पहचान करने की। नॉर्मली splitting of quantities in Indian stores tenders is possible. Normally full order quantity should be placed on L1 from L1 lowest technically eligible offer is technically eligible offer L1 form. However, if after due processing it is discovered that the quantity to be ordered is more than what L1 is capable of supplying, and there was no prior decision to split the quantities, then this aspect should be recorded in TC minutes acceptance and direct acceptance cases. So, so splitting of quantity, that means whether if clause is available in the quantity, whether to split among the L1 with the L1 rate, yes, it is a pre-decided clause. But in the this aspect is only part of the, we will place this aspect is it is part of tender condition and is mentioned in the tender document. It is known as pre-decided splitting. A pre-decided splitting, that means we can happily go and the tender committee will decide on the splitting of the quantities. Lekin in the case of there is no such kind of clause available, we have not. But however, the purchase means the committee also can decide which should be in a manner that will be fair, transparent, equitable. क्या बोला तो तीनों चीजें fair होना, we can distribute in a fair way, transparent way and equitable way among the L1s, it can be splitted. So the manner of splitting will take specific note of the points क्या बोले तो past performance of the bidders, capacity of the bidder, and delivery requirements. हमारा requirement है हमारा railway इतना spread होता है इसीलिए we have several consignees in several places. So where the logistics में हमको फायदा होगा. That is the important things. Delivery requirements in the tender and quantity under procurement. And vital and safety nature of the items, because vital and safety items, in case of any emergency, we have to have 3-4 sources available with us. So the splitting of quantities in stores contracts is there, and the quantities can be split among the eligible L1 tenders, L1 and nearest L1 within the zone of consideration of purchase. That means we will offer to L2 also with the rate of available at L1 rate, like that. So this clause is known as splitting of quantities. Whether it is available in the, normally it is made available as a clause in the tender conditions. Even if it is not available, a committee can decide upon the quantity finally being ordered can be distributed among the other bidders in a manner that will be fair, transparent and equitable manner. हमारा IRS conditions का general है, that can be there is a general condition that can be split by the tender committee even without a precondition. That is known as splitting of the quantity. Splitting in stores contract and not in work. Yes, we cannot split the quantities in works contract, but whereas we can split the quantities in stores contracts. That is the important thing. So in stores contract we can split the quantities. So हम थोड़ा आगे जाएंगे. This is pre-decided splitting. थोड़ा general guidelines भी available. Here the purchaser reserves the right. KV temptar बोलते हैं. The purchaser is responsible. The purchaser ने pre-decided splitting. हमारा condition में decide हुआ हम दिया है एक condition. So the purchaser reserves the right to distribute the procurable quantity on one or more than one of the eligible tenders. One or more than one of the eligible tenders. Maybe 1, 2, 3, up to 4 also we can go. Zone of consideration of such eligible tenders will be the right of the purchaser. So who will decide whose responsibility? हमारा purchase का हमारा tender committee the final right. They have the right to do so. Zone of how much up to what we can go, L1, L2, L3, L4, L5, up to that is known as zone of consideration. Up to what level we can go, that power has this purchaser, which the committee has that power. The zone of consideration will be a dynamic mix of inter-C position of firms. Normally we take them, so many factors we take into consideration. The inter-C position of the firms, supply performance of the firms. Normally they are regular suppliers. Quantity being procured, how much quantity we are going to procure, whether the quantity can be easily split. If it is a small quantity, we will not split. If it is quantity that can be split for only 2, yes, we can go up to 2. If it's such a huge quantity, it can be split among 3, 4. Yes, we go up to 3, 4, like that. That is the responsibility of the tender committee. So criticality of the and also lead time at what time, because if you give the entire quantity only one L1. So that will only have a very large order. There may be delays. So if you split it among the technically suitable fellows, so we can get the item very quickly wherever we require as per our our required delivery times. So criticality of a lead time of supply of the items, number of established supplies, their capacity, पूरा देखने के बाद this decision. This is in the pre-decided splitting. ये पूरा tender committee का जवाबदारी है, ये देखते हैं, and they are responsible and they are also have the right. They have the right to do so. Whenever such splitting of the procurable quantity is made, the quantity distribution will depend upon the differential rates quoted by the tenders other than aspects. Normally, quantity distribution between L1 and L2. For example, I am splitting among L1 and L2. The price is up to 3%, 100 rupees, 103 rupees a point. So normally when I give to the, so 60% of the quantity I will give it to L1 therapy, and then remaining 40% of the quantity with L1 rate to L2 also. So I have little preference for the L1 who has quoted. So that is, this is a general guiding principle for splitting of the quantities. It is known as price differential between L1 and L2, and quantity how much L1 among the L1 and L2 how can I can distribute it. थोड़ा आपको मैं guidelines बता रहा हूँ. इसीलिए whenever such splitting of the procurable quantity is made, the quantity distribution will depend on inverse manner upon the differential rates quoted by the tenderers, other aspects such as adequate capacity, capability, satisfactory past performance, outstanding order load, because other railway में उनका outstanding orders ज़्यादा हो रहा है, whether he can do that or not, quoted delivery schedule, how he is delivery schedule ऐसा, how he is managing the delivery schedule among various railways. So many items we take, and this is dealt by, this is seen in very clearly by the tender committee at the time of deciding the quantities while splitting the quantities in a tender before issuing a purchase order. So that is the most important thing in the tender conditions. Then our cheese hai, sometimes price variation. The price variation, while the offer of the firm can be price variation clausible, can be firm price. Generally we don't give the contracts with price variation applicable. Generally we give firm price only. The price variation is applicable from the date of offer. Then the offered price should be appropriately updated from the date of notice inviting tender to the date of consideration. So normally from the date of notice to date of consideration, if there happens to be delay, the market rates are so flexible. In the case copper, zinc, some metal items where so in that case we have to upgrade, update the rates, and accordingly the tender as per the tender condition, and the inter-C position of the sources vendors have to be evaluated. That is known as price variation. So this is also applicable. This is applicable. Price variation clause is applicable. Price variation, but not for the purpose of payment. These for the purpose of evaluation of tenders. For evaluation of tenders before going for a procurement. Before going to the procurement for valuing the tender. The valuation of form. So what is when we apply this price variation update this from the date of notice inviting tender to the date of consideration. The date of TC finalizing the contract. From the date of notice. So how much price variation is applicable? Update the rates and see the inter-C position. Accordingly, conclude the contract for the procurements. In the case of M&P items, there are some items, M&P items. What are the M&P items? Tenders conditions. Other things are applicable. But in the case of evaluation of comprehensive annual maintenance charges, CAMC charges we call them, for evaluation of tenders and to arrive at an inter-C position, all the items which will be taken into consideration has to be clearly defined in the tender notice and should not be left in the discretion of the TC. So such kind of things are to be kept as tender condition. So it should not be to the discretion of the TC, especially in the case of wherever the CAMC charges are available for the major M&P plant that is procured by Zonal Railways. For evaluation purpose, warranty period plus CMS charges. Normally, CMS charges we ask them to quote for 5 years. We ask them to quote for 5 years. Sir, stores tenders में अभी EMD हर टेंडर में नहीं है as a policy. As a policy, EMD नहीं है. EMD होना चाहिए wherever required. Generally, there is no EMD in stores tenders, but however in stores tenders, wherever EMD is required to be kept for the specific purpose, in such cases only they are tender. Because when we are procuring from the approved sources, when you are procuring from the MSME and whenever make in India policy items from the startups and the government, there is no EMD as such. But however, wherever the requirement is there, in that case, EMD is there, and that time, at the time of floating the tender, it is mentioned. But normally, there is no EMD as a rule in stores tenders, because we will be making the purchases based on the approved sources normally, and also MSME. We have a policy, MSME policy. Where these MSME and MSC policies are there, there is no standard earnest money deposit for the stores tenders. So as such, we have to go by the guidelines given for the procurement of such item from time to time. इसमें हमारा security deposit is also same thing. Whenever general charges, they call it as, whenever it is required only security deposit. Normally, when these are all there, whenever it is based on the is a precondition, we will keep security deposit. Wherever is required only, we will keep. Otherwise, there is no being the regular suppliers, there is no security deposit retention money as such for that purpose. But however, other things are available. Yes, machinery and plant. Full form of M&P means machinery and plant. M&P that means बड़ा tenders होते हैं, बहुत ज़्यादा more than 10 crores, 15 crores. इसमें or 100 crores. Now track machines are more than 50 crores, 60 crores. And track machines, they are also machines. So for evaluation purpose, warranty plus EMC charges for 5 years to take into account to arrive at all-inclusive rate. So what is all-inclusive rate for the purpose of evaluation of tender? Warranty period plus EMC charges 5 years and value of the item, basic item. All the things have to be taken into consideration for the all-inclusiveness rate. That is the general guidelines. More specific guidelines in the case of M&P items. So in the event of contractor's failure to have M&P commissioned by the time or the times respectively, wherever specified in the letter of acceptance of contract, purchaser may withhold or deduct recover from the contractor as a penalty a sum of 2% of the price of M&P which the contract has failed to commission. So 2% charges subject to a maximum of 10% can be recovered from the as a penalty for non-commission of M&P as per the condition. This is again a M&P item conditions. So I mean not vitiation. It is not vitiation. Inter-C position means at the time of inter-C position in this case doesn't happen at all. In the stores tenders, there won't be a chance of vitiation like in works tenders. But in stores tender itself, before it is only procurement of items. So there is no question of vitiation as such in the case of stores tenders. Okay. So please remember, in the case of M&P items, normally there will be only one person only, one supplier only in the case of items. But only here among the suppliers, there will be, but there may be a situation where non-commissioning of M&P for that purpose charges have to be levied, and this is a precondition in the M&P items of the stores tenders. So what is the purchase preference? What is meant by purchase preference? आपको मैं बताया a purchase preference to MSE, micro small enterprises, micro small medium enterprise, MSME. Up to 20% of the tender can be given up to 50% of the price. For example, your price is 100 rupees and the MSC firm has L1 price is 100 rupees and MSC firm has quoted a price of 115 rupees. So to match with the L1 firm, so we up to 20% of the tendered quantity can be offered to the MSME. This is policy given by the MSME or MSC policy or Make in India policy. So again, this has been enhanced. This purchase preference latest rule means a purchase preference up to 50% of the tendered quantity can be given under Make in India policy. Now the Make in India policy has come to the last 4-5 years. Based on this policy, up to 50% of the tendered quantity can be given, provided the firm matches the rate of the L1 firm. That means matches the rate of within again the percentage of range we have to consider, and purchaser has to be Normally, up to 15% of the price provided. So, what is the guiding principle here? Up to 15% of the price. That is 100 rupees is L1, and MSCE or this Make in India firm has quoted 150 rupees or 115 rupees. So, we can offer him certain quantity to this startup firm, matching the rates of the L1 firm. So we normally, as a purchaser, we give only L1 rate only, but quantity we will be offering for the purpose of development of source indigenously. That is the purpose of purchase preference in MSME and MSE and Make in India policy is to support the indigenous suppliers, to indigenous makers, indigenous entrepreneurs to develop these sources within the country. Within the country, which is that. Please wait, Rajesh ji, wait करो थोड़ा, wait करके थोड़ा, then मैं आगे थोड़ा मैं आपको बताऊंगा. So conditions की बारे में, for the who are having the powers to conditions under MSOP is again guiding up to the limit. So deviation of IRS condition of contract other than the above here, up to deviation acceptance of contract with guarantee period of less than 18 months from the date of commissioning should be as per party up to the limit of power of purchase or her officer का power होता है. Other than there shall be deposit in the power of tender acceptance authority. So this is another thing. I will be discussing some of the class. Medium and small enterprises. M बोले तो what is MSE means? Medium and small enterprises. Or medium, micro, small and medium enterprise. MSME. Micro, small and medium enterprises. Like that. So many things. There is a guidance. These are all the various forms available. So today we will again discuss certain classes, important conditions of the contract like liquidated damages, denial clause, general damages, risk purchase, arbitration, quantity option clause, statutory variation clause, inspection clause. So these are all the various important conditions, IRS and source conditions of the contract. You will be getting these items as short notes in our examination. What is liquidated damages? We will discuss this. Liquidated damage क्या होता है? Time for and the date of delivery as specified in the purchase order is the essence of the contract. What is the essence of the contract? Time, that is date of delivery. That is where it is specified. It is specified in the purchase order. So that is the essence of the contract. However, since if you feel that there is no loss by extending the delivery date, if you feel that a particular so extensions can be granted based on the conditions that are not within the within the control of the supplier. So in such cases, where deserving cases with genuine reasons, where the supplier is not in a not in within his powers, so there is genuine such the railway can give the extension of delivery date with the liquidated damages. Normally, on a liquidated damages, with the liquidated damages, the extension periods are granted. That is an important IRS condition of the contract. What is the most important IRS condition of the contract? Means extension of delivery date wherever there is no loss, and which is for the genuine reasons for which the supplier has failed to supply as per the delivery date. So extensions can be granted with the liquidated damages. What is the rule position? आपको मैं बताऊंगा. Recover from the contractor as agreed liquidated damages, not by way of penalty. Normally, liquidated damages are not a penalty. आपको मैं maximum ID बोले तो what is maximum LD? I'll tell you. It is coming. Recover from the contractor as agreed liquidated damages and not by way of penalty, because liquidated damages are not penalty. A sum equivalent to 2% of the price of any stores, including all taxes, duties, and rights, which contractor has failed to deliver within the period fixed for delivery within the delivery period, or extended for each month or part of a month during which delivery of such stores may be. This is a definition. Please, all of you must read this. Such stores may be in arrears where delivery thereof is accepted after the expiry of the aforesaid period. It means 2% of the price of any stores, that is 2%. Or the clause is for the purpose of discipline. That means part sometimes we make a part month, we can also 0.5%. So some equivalent, it is only for disciplining the contractor. It is not a punitive measure. So the maximum is, we cannot say it is not a penalty. So IRS 702 IRS condition states the liquid damages are not penalty. It is only to discipline the contractor, and by way of penalty, some equivalent 2% of the price of stores, inclusive of taxes, is the liquidated damages paid. Here मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ. So what is for each month or part thereof by which delivery stores have exceeded the period fixed for delivery in the subject to a maximum 10% of the value of the contract. So maximum कोई पूछा मेरे को, subject to a maximum of 10% of the value of contract or otherwise specified in the contract for purchase. Sometimes maybe 10%, maybe we may specify not more than 50,000, not more than 1 lakh, based on the, not more than 10 lakhs. So this is based on the clause, prevailing clause. But however, in the case of general items, subject to a maximum of 10% of the value of the contract specified in the contract for the purpose. According to the guiding principles, क्या हो रहा है? See, we have this, there is a general letter of the railway board letter which is still applicable. The liquidated damages recoverable would be normally as a principle where the loss can be assessed. If the loss can be assessed, loss sustained due to delay in supply, subject to the maximum as per the contract. So that loss should be recovered wherever loss can be assessed. Where loss or anything cannot be assessed, in that case, token liquidated damage at 10% of maximum permissible as per the contract. So here there is a definition here. 0.5% per week कर सकता है. So part of that, yes, 0.5% per week, like that, or maybe sometimes part thereof also. इसमें 0.5% per week, subject to maximum 2%, like that. Yes, it can be कर सकता है. Maximum 2% of month of delay. So, but however, it is not that for delivery in the account, subject to maximum 10%. So much it can be total LD can be leave it up to 10% of total value of the contract. So that should be seen. So in such cases, now what are the other things should be seen? The quantum of liquid damages recovered would be where loss can be assessed, that loss has to be recovered. Where loss cannot be assessed, token liquid damages up to 10% is permissible as per the contract applicable. If there has been neither loss nor inconvenience, yes, there is nil liquid damages. Calculation of actual loss must consider increase in taxes, duties, and also higher price paid for earlier supply. So this is the guiding principle where in case where there is no provision for penal recoveries. So in there is no as penalty, you cannot do. So this is a guiding principle. We are reading, this is MSOP guidelines even today. If besides the actual loss, there is a component of loss that cannot be assessed or inconvenience caused, token liquid damage may be levied in addition to the actual loss subject to the maximum. So this is also there. If besides the actual loss, there is a component of loss that cannot be assessed or inconvenience caused. So in such cases also, token liquid damages can be levied up to a maximum of 10%. There is again railway board data indicates there should not be no system of waiver of liquid damages. There is no waiver of liquid damages system of and imposition of token liquid damages for delayed supplies and supply contracts. So it should be system of waiver of liquid damages and imposition of token liquid damages for delayed supplies in the supply contracts strictly as an exception rather than a rule, and only in situation where the circumstances leading to delays in supplies were beyond the control of the supplier. Sometimes because of the pandemic, there is no road transportation. So in such cases, there is no liquidated damages, levy of liquidated damage in exceptional cases. So those things have to be taken into consideration for the purpose of liquidated damages. Please, with the short note question. Again, there is another important clause. The denial clause. Denial clause means payment of taxes on account of government policies. Normally, denial means we don't pay, we deny your claim, we deny the claim of you on account of price escalation, on account of taxes which are not to be borne by us. So, what is the conditions here? That no increase in price on account of any statutory increase in or fresh imposition of custom duty, excise duty, sales tax, or on account of any other tax or duty leviable in respect of the stores. That means no increase in statutory duties which takes place after the date of delivery. After the date of delivery, in case of any increase in prices, railway is not responsible to pay for those increase. That is then as denial clause. But however, in case within the delivery period, yes, we have to pay. That is called GST neutrality. बोलते हैं हम दे दिया है हम सभी जगहों में. That notwithstanding any stipulation in the contract for increase in price on any other ground, no such increase which takes place after the date of delivery stipulated in the contract shall be admissible on such of the said stores as are delivered after the expiry of the delivery period. So even the delivery period stipulated in the contract. So such kind of things. But however, the purchaser shall be entitled to the benefit of any decrease. However, he will not pay, but however, any decrease in rates even after the delivery of date, by way of supplier is benefited by way of reduction in taxes to him from the stores, from the tax department, that should be passed on to the purchaser. That should be passed on to the railway. So any increase in the price on account of reduction or the elimination of custom duty, excise duty, sales tax, GST, वगैरह. So that is applicable even after the expiry of the delivery date also. That clause is applicable for the purpose of railway IRS, for the purpose of purchases made by the Indian Railways. That is the denial clause. So denial clause is having these three components. These three components most important. What is statutory variation clause? Statutory variation clause, whenever prices of GST increases, we have to increase the price and pay the, that is no statutory variation. Statutory variation in terms of taxes, duties, वगैरह, whereas government is collecting from the supplier, that by being a purchaser, we have to pay the, that is known as statutory variation clause. So that is, but in the case of denial clause, we will not agree for the items of increase which are made beyond the statutory variation clause is because in the case of statutory variation clause, in the case of increase in GST rate from 12% to 18%, that increase normally we pay during before the, because those things have to be paid by the, that is known as statutory variation clause. We have to pay the taxes, additional taxes, all those things, whatever is paid will be the for the purchase what we made. But whereas in the case of denial clause, the denial clause applicable for the increase in rates beyond the delivery dates. For the delivery dates, delivery after the delivery date, if in case of any statutory variation, that is not the responsibility of the purchaser to pay the increased element. So that is the that is important of the denial clause. So then there is again general damages. It is wherever security deposit not normally there in the stores contract, wherever the vendors are exempt from submission of security deposit, normally this clause is applicable. Wherever security deposit there, then it is okay. General damages clause is wherever the vendors are exempted submission of the security deposit. So in this, what is the general damages clause? This is most important. Purchaser shall have the right to levy damages from the supplier for failing to comply with the contractual conditions. In case of belated supplies, there are many contractual conditions. There is a breach of contract, not by way of penalty. it is not a penalty again. An amount equal to this SD amount as would have been applicable in case of a non-exempted vendor. In the case of non-exempted vendor, there would be a security deposit. In such case of vendors, how much is the security deposit element? To the extent general damages are levied. So purchaser shall have the right to levy damages from the supplier for failing to comply with the contract conditions, not by way of penalty. It is not a penalty. Again, it is only disciplining the supplier. An amount equal to SD amount, security deposit amount, as would have been applicable in the case of non-exempted vendor. In such cases, wherever non-exempted vendors are there, where they will collect from security deposit, such amount is taken as general damages wherever there is a breach. Let us not participate, failing to comply with the contractual conditions, failing to comply with the contractual conditions. So it is only to discipline the contractor again. So Railway Board Circular 2019 is important for that. And there are another clauses, one is risk purchase and arbitration clauses. What type of breach? They failing to here. Damage means, what is meant by damage? Damages means the loss that has been gained by incurred by the purchaser through this contract. So much is so we will take levy of damages, that is known as damages both. So how much is loss I have incurred for not complying with the contractual conditions? For that purpose, these are contractual conditions. If you see the contract law, there is a obligation on the part of the parties to comply with the contractual conditions, wherein case both the parties are payable and the damages for the non-complying with the contractual conditions. That is known as damages. So damages means general damages, how much loss has been incurred for that. That is, using the contract law, contract act, you will find these items. There is again risk percentage, risk purchase and arbitration clauses. So most important clauses are these two, are where IRS conditions. Risk purchase shall be made when a contractor fails and the earlier contract is resigned, that is closed, terminated, at the risk and cost of the contract we float another contract. The same conditions must be there, same terms and conditions, and the increase in prices has to be recorded from the defaulted contractor as a risk purchase contract. So that is, normally railway has an obligation to float the risk purchase contract within 9 months of the date of the original breach of the contract, original termination of the contract. Within 9 months of the contract, the risk purchase contract has to be filed, how to be floated with the same terms and conditions. Because there is no similarity, then the risk purchase contract is not. So risk purchase is another clause important. Similarly, in the event of any dispute or difference of the opinion, so risk purchase is another clause, and again arbitration clause, most important clause. Event of any dispute, what are the important clause of stores conditions, stores contract means you can write all these clauses: liquidated damages, general damages, risk purchase, arbitration clauses, statutory variation clause, denial clause, splitting up of quantities. So these are the important conditions of stores contracts. So this will become a total essay for you, or a part essay wherever you can. There will be a short notes on liquidated damages. There will be a short notes on approved sources from the contract. So denial clause, अगर ये GST rate घट जाता है तो क्या वेंडर को परचेज वैल्यू को पूरा अमाउंट दिया जाएगा? दिया जाएगा भैया, देना ही बना, वो तो स्टैट्यूटरी वेरिएशन क्लास है, डिनाइल क्लास ये नहीं है। डिनाइल क्लास बोलते हो supplies made after the date of delivery date, supplies made, rates affected after the date of delivery. The increase in GST rate after the date of delivery is not applicable. समझा? That is known as denial clause. After the date of delivery of supplies, the railway is not responsible for the increased rates, increased taxes for the quantity which he has supplied after the date of delivery. So iska bare mein, that is known as general contract. So there are many cases. In the case of the event any dispute or difference of opinion between the railway administrator and the contractor as to the respective rights and obligation of the parties. So it has to be referred to an arbitrator known as sole arbitrator, maybe or a arbitration committee. Who will do this? Who will appoint this arbitration? Arbitrator shall be appointed by the committee or arbitrator, sole arbitrator, general manager. So the arbitrators guidelines or arbitrators directives are binding on both the parties. That is known as arbitration clause is also important conditions. Then most important clause option quantity option clause. For the quantity option clause. So most important IRS items is IRS conditions granted for tenders valuing 75 lakhs and above. The purchaser shall have the right to increase or decrease the ordered quantity by a quantity not exceeding 30% of the ordered quantity in the same price and the terms and conditions during the currency of the contract with suitable delivery schedule. So, how many percentage general damage? Percentage generally 10%. Boss, general damages are 10%. 10% up to a maximum 10% of the are equivalent to sometimes general damages are equivalent to SD amount. Security deposit is normally 10% of the total value generally in these cases. Here also general 10%, but we will call it as equivalent to security deposit. Security deposit decided for the non-exempt vendor. Non-exempt vendor का कितना SD होता है उतना ही. That is the general damages. Okay, normally it is 10%, but however हमारा class है ऐसा है non-exempt vendor का security deposit amount कितना होता है उतना ही percentage, वही percentage is the general damages. That is the clause applicable. Now quantity option clause, most important clause for tenders valuing. For example, समझो आप purchase order दिया है, so जरूरत नहीं पड़ा. But definitely the purchaser has right to reduce the quantity. In the case of COVID समय में, we have not run the trains, due to which we have operated this 30% option clause in many purchase components, but many purchase orders of our components. So what we have done, we have exercised 30% option clause. So we have reduced our quantities. So this has to be done. So it has to be done, or either increase in case of we require quantity, but we found that the rates are going up in the upward market. In such cases, railway has right to increase the quantity by 30%, either increase or decrease by 30% of the purchase quantity, purchase order quantity. So for whom these are the tenders valuing more than 75 lakhs and above. So for that purpose, so the railway has right to either increase or decrease by not more than 30% of the ordered quantity, by not more than the 30% of the, whenever works contract is going from 2 years or more than, how will we liquid damages works contract में है नहीं और राजेश जी और एक बार पढ़ो इसका वर्क्स कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में लिक्विड डैमेज के बारे में क्या सोच है इसका. So liquid damages are there in the stores contracts. Okay, so works contract penalties are different. Liquid damages are not penalty भैया, और सोचना और एक बार पढ़ लो. Oh, for tenders, so the purchaser can vary the order quantity by exercising the option clause during the currency of the contract, giving reasonable time bar notice for executing such increase or decrease. Normally, purchaser can vary the order quantity by exercising the option clause only during the currency of the contract. By giving reasonable time notice, we have to give time for executing. Normally, this has to be done before the expiry of the currency of the date. So that means option clause can be extended up to the last date of scheduled delivery period. Please remember, last date of scheduled delivery. Even in such case, sometimes delivery khatam hota hai pehle se delivery periods. But lekin if delivery last scheduled delivery period is still available, still live. So within that time we can extend the or either increase or decrease the quantity within that delivery date, last delivery date period is the vital here. So that is known as quantity option clause. This is the most important clause for the Indian Railway Stores contracts. So for values, tenders value more than 75 lakhs and above, this clause is applicable. This is for the benefit of the administration, the purchase department, who is responsible for exercising the option clause. And there are many cases, vigilance cases, and railway purchase department. So PCMM office should be alert in place in doing so for watching the increased rate. Well, in case of increasing rates, they will exercise plus 30% option clause to gain the benefit of the quantity at the lower rate with the existing contract. Similarly, in case of not required, the material not required, so we can exercise the minus 30% quantity. Or in case of reducing price also, we can exercise minus 30% quantity of that particular purchase order. So the most important clause is quantity option clause in. So who is having powers? All officers, full powers up to their powers of acceptance, who can exercise. So that means all purchase officers. Operation of option clause will not require finance concurrence in TC case. Wherever TC case are there, operation of option clause does not require any finance concurrence. In case of tenders accepted by GM or AGM, variation in quantity also requires sanction of GM agent. With such cases, the finance concurrence is necessary. So please remember, within the powers of acceptance, there is no finance concurrence by the purchase officer. But where the tenders are accepted by the general manager and AGM, in such cases, finance concurrence is necessary. Similarly, contracts done by railway board level. That means when you want to operate in where the purchases are made by the railway board. So again, with the approval of GM and with the approval of GM, it can be done, and finance concurrence is necessary. Finance concurrence is necessary for exercising quantity option clause powers. So that is the important of thing. Now another important clause is statutory variation clause. What is statutory variation clause? The offers will be based on the GST rate quoted by the bidders. Normally, however, while quoting, it is the responsibility of the bidders to ensure that they are quoting the correct GST rate and HST code. So normally, statutory variation clause is applicable in IRS conditions for the contracts. Whenever increase in GST rates, and same things are applicable here. But however, it is the responsibility of the bidder to provide this GST rate and homogeneous number. Homogeneous number is the number which is the responsibility of this thing. If the quote erroneous GST rate and HSN number, then the liability for payment of the difference in GST amount, if any, by way of statutory varying clause, is not there with the railway. So it is the responsibility of the providing the entire information for availing the statutory variation clause, which is applicable, which is payable by the purchaser in IRS conditions. So this is the importance of the statutory variation clause. Then payment terms and all those things are another important clause. Then inspection clause is another important clause in the IRS conditions. मैं बता रहा हूँ इसका notes के बारे में. So friends, I'll clause if plus or minus is ordered the second last day of the, what is meant by of DP? Then DP should be delivery period. Okay, suitable. See, the exercising plus or master within it can be done. After the second last day of the, what is meant by second last day of the DP? Is even the last day of the DP also can be done. On the last day of the delivery period also, this clause can be exercised. But for the additional quantities, in the case of plus plus 30%, a suitable delivery period has to be made. Delivery schedule has to be made. Delivery schedule and delivery period should be mentioned to the respective consignees. Yes, purchaser has right to do so as per the IRS conditions prevailing in the case of wherever this optional clause is applicable. So it is applicable. Yes. Normally new delivery schedule will give no. Yes, yes to obey to that new delivery schedule for that increased quantity. For that increased quantity. That's okay. Even for the decreased quantity also, he has to follow within the delivery period. Delivery scheduled date. There is no second last day. Even the last day also, it can be done. In the last movement of that hour also, it can be done. No issue. Okay. Okay. Then inspection clause. So material to be pre-inspected by RDs or rights railways option, or as stated in the sometimes consignees final acceptance is also necessary. So where to be applied, and in the case of where the consignees final inspection. So I am sharing the inspection clause ke bare mein. What are the clauses? So in these cases, so in IRS conditions, most important clause is inspection clause. In the case of items not as per the specification, the material is defaced and rejected, and it is the responsibility of the supplier to lift these items from the premises of the railway. In case the material not supplied is non-conforming to the specification indicated, the purchaser or the inspecting officer shall have free access to the works factory, so we can go and inspect them and see that that all reasonable times items and terminate the contract if it is found that agreed quality is not being adhered to, because ours is a safety element is involved in many of our railway components that we procure through IRS contracts. So friends, I have certain topics, spot purchase, and then tomorrow I'll discuss another class में, and then क्या मैं आपका जी गवर्नमेंट ई मार्केट के बारे में मैं आपको शेयर करूंगा, और स्टोर टेंडरिंग है, और नेक्स्ट क्लास आई विल डील स्टोर टेंडरिंग, and then IREPS, Constitution of Tender Committee. These are the topics available. Next class I will discuss. मैं आपको छोड़ रहा हूँ यहाँ आपका सेल्फ एग्जामिनेशन शॉर्ट आंसर क्वेश्चंस एग्जामिनेशन के बारे में. Kindly attempt these questions, and at the end of slide I gave you the answers. आपका 5 स्लाइड में आपको की भी बताया, 6th स्लाइड में आप खुद डिसिप्लिन में आप आंसर कर लो, आप पहचान कर लो इसका रूल क्या क्वेश्चन है. With that, I will close today's sessions. Tomorrow, again, one more class I will be taking. I will be asking you questions for Nagisaraji. You are available? Oh yeah, I will share the notes. Notes will be shared by. Nagisaragaru, Bilahari, you have raised some hand. Tell me what is your question. Please unmute their mics, Nagisaragaru. Okay, I will share these notes. So thank you all. I will close for today's session. Nagisaraji.
Sir, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Sir, difference between liquidated damages and general damages, sir.
General damages are there for the liquidated damages. General damages wherever the contracts, wherever the security deposit is not available. In such cases, normally in stores contracts, security deposits collected in the specific tenders only. From the specific tenders only. In such cases, general damages are levied where the security deposit is not there. To that extent, to that level, we will levy the general damages. Because general damages, what is the percentage available for the levy of security deposits in the case of non-exempt vendors? To that extent, to that percentage, normally it is 10%. General damages are 10% of the total value of the contract. But normally we will not specify that in that tender. We will specify only the applicability of a rate is in accordance with the non-exempt vendors.
Okay, thank you, sir.
नमस्ते सर।
नमस्ते जी, बिलहरी
सर,
जी।
एक तो क्वेश्चन पूछना है सर।
बताइए
सर, वो जो इंस्पेक्शन क्लाउज होता है
जी,
तो मान लीजिए 5000 क्वांटिटी इंस्पेक्शन बाय आरडीएसओ और राइट्स लिखा हुआ है
जी।
अगर 1000 इंस्पेक्शन के लिए में किया कि 1000 क्वांटिटी इंस्पेक्टेड बाय कॉन्साइनी एंड बैलेंस बाय आरडीएसओ, तो ये कौन कर सकता है ऐसा? मतलब क्या कंपनी ऐसा चेंज कर सकता है कि आरडीएसओ टू कॉन्साइनी चेंज इंस्पेक्शन?
तो हमारा कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कंडीशन क्या है वो देखना पड़ेगा ना
सर। उसमें मान लीजिए है आरडीएसओ इंस्पेक्शन।
ओके, ठीक है, आरडीएसओ इंस्पेक्शन है।
एक एमए हो गया, उसमें लिखा कि बाय इंस्पेक्शन बाय कॉन्साइनी, तो ये कौन कर सकता है? टेंडर एक्सेप्टिंग अथॉरिटी कर सकता है या उससे हायर अथॉरिटी कर सकता है?
टेंडर एक्सेप्टिंग अथॉरिटी कर सकते हैं ना।
ओके सर।
मैं थोड़ा देखूंगा किसका मेरे को आई हैव नॉट अंडरस्टूड द टोटल केस आपका पूरा, बट लेकिन टेंडर एक्सेप्टिंग अथॉरिटी का पावर में आता है।
अच्छा,
डेविएशन टू हायर स्टैंडर्ड एक बार एमएसओपी पढ़ना जी।
कौन सा कॉपी सर?
एमएसओपी पार्ट डी।
ओके ओके ओके,
आप एक बार रेफर करना।
यस
वो अच्छा होता है, आप पूरा स्टोर्स के बारे में पूरा पार्ट डी का एमएसओपी आप देखना है।
ओके सर।
और एक बार रेफर करना है बिफोर गोइंग फॉर एग्जामिनेशन।
जी।
General conditions of the contract of for stores department subject to the max of 5,000. Actual cost of the test charges incurred will be paid by the supplier to the inspecting agency. Traders or authorized agents are required to offer material for inspection at manufacturer's premises only. Like that. So some conditions are given. So in case of firm fails to offer the material for inspection against the inspection call issued to the inspecting agency, or if the material have to be re-inspected due to rejection of the material at firm's premises by the inspecting agency, or due to non-dispatch of material within the validity of inspection cycle, then 50% of the inspection charges applicable for the offered quantity has to be collected from the party, from the supplier. ऐसा some penalty भी लिखा है इसके बारे में। So मैं आपको शेयर कर लिया है एक पूरा, ठीक है। So with that मैं क्लोज करूंगा भाई। I think there are no queries. Yes, with that there are no queries. I will be closing the session. Thank you for the। और एक मैं क्लास लेऊंगा, आप थोड़ा ध्यान से सुनना मेरे क्लास, थोड़ा स्टडी में, बिकॉज टेक्निकल में होता है पूरा। हिंदी में टेक्निकल में ये कंडीशंस बोलना थोड़ा मुश्किल है मेरे, इसीलिए मैं आपको थैंक यू, somebody has given me fabulous session, thank you बोल के, थैंक यू सर जी।
Sir,
Thank you जी, I will close for today. Thank you,
sir.
thank you very much.